What's up, nerds? Own Goal here. Today I'm going to be bringing you the story of how I made the finals of a big international invitational without really practicing. So what happened was a while back I started playing a bunch of games with Han Samurai, who's a top Chinese player, after hitting him on the ladder a bunch. And then I was practicing a bit with his teammate Heisey and some other folks over there. There's a great community over in China, ton of really avid players and great fans. And then a bit later, he reached out and hit me up and said, "Hey, we're going to put on this international tournament. Would you like to play?" I'd been mostly playing Domination to get ready for the World Champs, Turin's end of season events. But I like to say yes to that kind of thing, so I gave it a shot. Basically, this is the bracket that loaded in, and they did a pretty good job getting great players to join. Like they had Berserk, the current top Elo player, and then a bunch of the other like Vermin League high level fixtures like Butcher, Phoenix King, Ryder, my teammate Sipa, who got second to Alfredino in the Vermin League Cup, which is the closest thing to a World Champs in land battle in a while. So overall, Heisey, really strong player. Overall, like really good showing from the elite tournament community and pretty cool event. I'm going to skip round one because it was on last patch and the replays are corrupted. So let's talk for a second about round two against my teammate Sipa. So this was a best of five. The format's pick three, ban one. And the person who goes first picks the maps. So in game one, I picked Skaven into Sipa's Corn. I knew that like this style of Skaven build would throw him off a little bit. And because I hadn't been practicing very much, I was trying to bring units that were recently buffed in like slightly off meta builds. So I brought Gorich, who just got a huge buff. He's like this big monstrous SE duelist. Tretch, who plays pretty well into like the murder blob. He's like a cheap lord. He's very hard to kill. He has an aura that conditionally turns on if you're already winning combat, which you tend to be when Gorich is in combat. And then I brought the just buffed Skaven caster. I love this unit. The Eshin Sorcerer with Warp Stars and the Toxic Rain, so this unit got a double buff. They made the base caster cheaper, and they also made the Toxic Rain lore passive for Eshin spells last longer. So this gives their entire army poison, basically, which is really powerful for 10 seconds, especially when you're kiting them. So here we've got like the center of our murder blob formation. And the idea is basically we like are actually kind of corn, like we have corn at home. We've got all these halberds, we're backing them up with rogers, and we just have a little bit of shooting. Like very efficient, cheap Skaven slave slingers. We have 1,000 gold of those, and then we just have 2 globes to protect. So only 2,300 worth of shooting, and then we're otherwise just fully a melee faction. And then Sipa took like a pretty solid box diving corn build. He Vanguard summoned all these Furies. He has a big wall of cheap infantry, and then some elites to help break through things. And overall, I think we were like pretty good into his build. On the approach, we take a couple shots with the Eshin Sorcerer, and then we pick our targets. We match up Gorich against like the somewhat vulnerable Blood Shrine, and here Sipa got his dive time a little bit off. Like he was trying to get the Furies into melee range to stop us from getting the infantry, but they came in too early, and so we had an opportunity to get our Rogers and other units on them, clear off the Furies, and then do a lot of damage to the front line. I'm going to fast forward really fast to get through like a little bit of the engage. So what ultimately happens here is that his diving units get taken out, and then he's a little bit short on melee to power through like our extremely strong melee line. And so the big chonky rat gets to go hog wild with Gorich taking out a variety of SEs, and our rat ogres and halberd combos just slicing away at many of his things. Similarly, like wherever Tretch is, these rats are buff buff buff. So you can kind of see it like when he gets into melee, you'll see one of these. So we get in like over here. And Tretch himself immediately gets Tretch's Raiders, so he's got like a reasonably impressive stat line for a cheap lord. And then some of our other units like the Storm Vermin pick it up. You can see like they're pretty strong, nothing to completely write home about, but still powerful overall. Good damage, good attack, quite potent. And while that's all going on, he's trying to take out our Poison Winds unsuccessfully. And we're able to dwindle down his answers to Gorich, and then Gorich just kind of carries the game. So I'm going to zoom out here for a second, keep it on fast forward, and you'll see it's like a little bit close, but it's not that close because we end up with like some pretty healthy melee units. And Sipa does a nice job microing here and getting his damaged Skull Taker out of combat so that it can try to heal out of combat with our elites. But he just can't deal with like the recurrent slows on his army. We catch up every once in a while. as well as like our strong elite melee core. And that's enough to bring the first game of this best of 5 home, getting a bit of upset against like the phenomenally skilled Sipa, which I hate to say. Sipa, don't watch this. He's a fun guy. He's got a bit of an ego. I don't like to say he's good at the game, but it is nonetheless true. All right, so that's round 1. Um, Overall, like the units did pretty well. Sorcerer got like a bunch of passive heal or passive impact, as well as like paying for himself and then some. Our halberds cleaned up, and our other units traded like reasonably well. The Rogers did their job. They just like body blocked and consumed some corn units. He was able to kill our slingers, but that took time and focus. And our globes ultimately did okay. Moving on to game 2, we played our beastmen into Sipa's high elves. In this situation, we were able to like pretty effectively deal with his kite and SE chiefs. So he went for like this really, really healing and dragon heavy build with mass kite. We went for like a balanced, more typical of domination rush, where we're like heavy on infantry. We have a bunch of cavalry. We've got a Doom Bull and a Gore Bull combo, like 2 of the best SE duelists in the game. And a trader, actually, no, we took a Lore of Shadows caster to help catch kiting elements. So we opened up in like a pincer formation. This is just, expecting an archer box, which he didn't do. And the idea there is we do like a double envelop and then we collapse. So he sees he's on this like all-in kite build, and we decide that what we want to do is capture the point when available, and then try to catch and pick off these individual skirmishing units. And Sipa has all the agency here, like our cav is not good enough to catch him, so we need him to make a mistake. One thing you can do with Beastmen that's pretty effective is to leave like a bait target available. So if you keep your duelist SEs near something that they're likely to go for with a vulnerable unit, you can do one of the more powerful tactics in the game where you move in onto the vulnerable unit with the high mass, high speed Centaurs, use that to hold them in place, and then catch up with your slower, heavier hitting duelists. So this whole game, we're looking to catch like a dragon or some cavalry or Alariel when they dive on one of our softer targets, like potentially our caster, or, well, there's nothing else soft, so our caster. Or perhaps, an isolated infantry unit that they're trying to get like a sandwich charge on. So we move some things into the point to put him on a conquest timer, and then we're just trying to, get our spells off and catch things where we can. Which over a long enough period of time will go poorly for us for Alariel, so he's putting us on a bit of a timer with his ranged and his heals. And here, we see that he's going for a dive, and this whole game, we're keeping these guys within pick range. We're like hyper aware, so we immediately go for the tactic. We turn our Centaurs around, we catch Alariel, and then we move some halberds in. And when we see that we've actually got the catch, like sometimes they're not able to actually place the catch. But once they get the surround on a lower mass unit like this, it's pretty stuck. We immediately turn our Doom Bull Gore Bulls, we send another cav, and we're like, blare the sirens, go get her. This is the opportunity. We're winning the game right here and right now. Sipa does his best to get us off the Lord, but actually, I think he friendly fires there a bit with the breath. That's phenomenal. This Lord is really screwed. Like the Doom Bull Gore Bull combo is just really, really dominant in these kinds of situations. For only 2,500, they outduel essentially anything. And they have great chase animations, like high charge speed. They have like the Minotaur Doom Roll. So we get his Lord, and from there, the rest is pretty elementary. We just need to try to catch up to these units, like not get too many things picked off, and hold the point. So that's how we take down game 2. And now the series is looking pretty good for us on a best of 5. Initially, we actually thought that I had won at that point, and so we took a brief intermission. But it turned out that it was not a best of 3, it was best of 5. So then we jumped back in and we kept playing. Overall, pretty good performance for the Beastmen. I don't know that I'd fully recommend this build in land battles. Like, you probably want to go a little bit lighter on cav and a little heavier on mobility. But it is like a bit of a curveball, and it can catch some things like box off. So overall, like, not terrible. So for game 3, we try like a Wood Elf box. So this is part of the problem of like not preparing for the event. I don't really know conquest and land battles. And so I felt like this would be kind of good, and I was like trying to throw curveballs at people with like some of the new units, like the recently buffed Zotes. So I felt like this could work through Sipa's greenskins. And he took like a nice, very cavalry heavy rush, a lot of strong, efficient units. And so we're just cheesing. This is like num rat cheese. So we've got this like very heavy box with a little bit of shooting, and we want to run the Death Star away, try to pick off his shooting and cav, and then just grind him out with Durthu in the center. So, it's a cohesive plan, but like maybe not a good plan. I'll fast forward and show you what happens. And Sipa reacts to this quite well. You know, he has a patient push. He doesn't overexpose his vulnerable units. And then when he gets the catch, he has good spacing on his dive, so he doesn't get too surrounded. Good target priority on his shooting. Like, he takes out my shooting first, makes sure to catch it in melee so I can't counterfire. And then he just kind of outmuscles like our blob with a combination of a ton of damage from his archers and picking off like our weaker things first and then our more expensive things. And we're overwhelmed by the Greenskins Tide, so that's like a pretty easy win for Sipa. Well played, good execution. And I wouldn't recommend the build we brought. I think it needs like a little something to fully function. And so we're punished for our ignorance, which is how the game goes. Taking a quick look at the value, I'm not even going to show you my units. They got destroyed. Notably, though, his archers, this is like what we're talking about with good target priority and shutting down our counterfire, just absolutely cleaned up. So, you know, as a cohort, his ranged units are like 2.5, 3xing, and they still got ammo and health left. So well played by Sipa. And then in the final game, we go for our Tzeentch. This is kind of a cool build. I don't think it's like standard land battles tech. Basically, like the Tzeentch halberds, Exalted Pinks, and Spawn all got buffed on the most recent patch. And this kind of style of play used to be like a relatively top tier thing in Domination back before Chaos Warriors of Tzeentch came out. So it was like Forsaken Spawn was one of the better things in the game for a period of time. And these units just got buffed to a level that's not too far off of their peak performance. So we've been trying this one out this tournament. It's like worked pretty well for us against a variety of things, especially against Bretonnia, where they frequently are going for like archers plus a bunch of cav to protect it when they're fighting Tzeentch. They can be really susceptible to just like a stat wall plus a little bit of shooting to counterfire the archers and Kairos to also counterfire the archers. So like you take out their range and you force them to fight Tzeentchian halberds with Spawn to prevent them from getting like mass collisioned out. And it's just a huge issue. The other thing is that our heart is full of hatred and darkness. A while back, we lobbied to have the shorter conquest timer, but the community was like, it's fine, don't worry, you have, you know, there's not enough time to spell kite, so let's put a whole minute before the point opens up and then 600 points on top of that. I don't really see any issue with giving factions like 10 minutes or something to just shoot. So, you know, I tried my best to get folks not to do this. And now I kind of take some perverse joy in demonstrating why that might have been a good idea. So we do the Dark Lord thing. We got the Tzeentch units in the corner, and they're just gonna kind of take their time to mosey on over to the center point. Well, Kairos uses his suite of abilities, namely Greater Arcane and Life Leeching, to pop off a bunch of like small damage blue fires. And the real thing that he's doing while this is going on is charging up the Tzeentchian army abilities, which are very powerful. So it's just kind of free value. Sipa does a very nice job of zoning us. It's not worth it for us to shoot Lewin, and Lewin is faster than Kairos, so we actually kind of have to run away. And we're not getting, you know, peak damage. We make a mistake there and go for a net. We're just kind of trying to see how bad we can tickle him. And he's not very ticklish, I must admit. Like, you can kind of see it just doesn't do anything. So, you know, we give up. And he can buzz around, but there's just, like, no targets for him, really. So we ignore, take a few pot shots where we can get it, and just approach to the points. Since he's shut down our cheese, we're not going to get that much more value on spamming our spells. And then we want to use Kairos as, like, a distraction Carnifex whenever we can. So when they've got expensive things, if they're chasing Kairos instead, you're pretty happy about that because he functions after taking damage and is actually really tanky. We execute a key play there. So he lands his Royal Hippos and we immediately net it. And then we get the Spawn and the Halberds on it. And this combo just eviscerates large units. Because the Halberds like do so much damage. This is like through a regrowth and so much through armor. And similarly, like the Spawn hold things in place and shred any like armor that is left. And so not only does the AP get through, but the non-AP is like pretty close to true damage. And it's just an absolutely devastating combination in melee. So we're able to pretty quickly snipe off the Royal Hippos. And while this is going on, you know, we get like a nice spell on the back line, clear off some peasant archers. And that's kind of all she wrote. Like, Sipa doesn't have a lot of counterplay now. The blob is still alive and steady. He can pick off some isolated things, but all we really need to do is push through in time, hold the points, and sort of like grind out the rest of his army. He probably needed to get his archers in there a little slower, like make sure he got our ranged units down. and then use his ranged units and heal kiting to like pick us apart over time. But we were able to catch him and bring down the series win. So that's Sipa down, former world number 2. He recently just got number 2 in the world champs at Dom, which is impressive for a crossover player, but this was not his series, and we got him today. So that puts us on through to the quarterfinals. Remember to like and subscribe if you like this kind of content. Next time we will bring you our match against Pigman.